we have discussed many things, and finally we're moving into setting up, well, understanding how to measure progress for women who are chasing aesthetic and health goals as well. Also, if you are trying to be like at a professional level bodybuilder or something like that, that health might take a back seat. Nevertheless, you need to be able to track something to actually move towards your goal instead of trying to go all over the place. So first things first is, could you tell more about the importance of setting clear, measurable goals, and why is it important for tracking your health and aesthetics outcomes?
I think being clear with the goal is the key to the beginning of this entire fitness journey. All the time you hear females say, "I want to lose weight," and 99% of the time, once I get talking to them, weight isn't really the goal. The goal was to drop body fat. If we were just looking to lose weight, the approach could be a million times different than if you're looking to lose body fat. When I work with performance athletes that need to make weight for a category, like a fighter has to make weight, we do that in the last week leading into the fight. It's not something that we're doing all the time. It's literally a manipulation of electrolytes and body water and stuff like that to make weight. But typically, the females that I'm working with, they're looking to improve body composition and health markers. So losing weight, they usually mean losing fat. So I think it's important that the goal is clear from the beginning, because how we design the programs and how we're going to be measuring progress is all based on what the goal is. If you tell me you just want to lose weight, I can make you lose weight tonight and you will weigh something different tomorrow. But if that's not necessarily the goal, so we have to make sure we're very clear on what exactly are you trying to achieve? Like, what is the goal? It has to be clear. And I think that just comes down to the language barrier. We just have to make sure we're communicating and people understand the difference between weight loss and fat loss. If they need to make weight for a sporting event, that's obviously relevant. If they don't need to make weight for an event, it's body fat that they should be concerned with, not body weight.
You talked previously about obviously how period affects it and whatnot. Do you do some things where you just tell them to kind of check their body weight every single day, or check it in the morning and at night and compare it, just to highlight how insignificant that change actually can be, in sense of that how much it fluctuates and they don't even realize that?
Yes. I do determine this based on the client. Some clients I work with, scale weight is a trigger for them, and it can be demotivating or even derailing to their progress. So if that is the case, we try to find other ways around tracking progress. But if it's not, I do prefer they check body weight every day, every morning, under the same conditions. Whatever your morning routine is, establish the weight check as part of it. So wake up, go to the bathroom, step on the scale, mark it down. Wearing the same clothes or no clothes or whatever you're doing. So you're controlling as many variables as you can, and then track that. And then I'm looking at the averages every week. And I want females to see that, because as we approach that late luteal phase, or the quote unquote PMS phase, there's almost always a water retentive phase there, and your scale weight will go up. It has nothing to do with body composition in terms of body fat going up or down. It's literally just body water moving. I want them to get familiar with this trend, because it's going to repeat every month with a regular menstruating female. And interestingly, even in women that are in menopause now and don't actually menstruate, I still see the same symptoms. There's still a water fluctuation. There's still a lot of the same symptoms. There's just no actual menstruation to see. So it's important that they see that, because then they can start to almost prepare themselves for they know it's coming. And then what they want to do is they want to be checking the luteal phase of, say, May to the luteal phase of June. So you can compare those two body weights under the same physiological conditions that the hormones are contributing to through menstruation. You don't want to be looking at late luteal and mid follicular as a comparison of weight progress, because you're going to have two different body fluctuations just from water weight alone, from estrogen and progesterone, peaking and dropping off. So it's a very important distinction to have. And sometimes what you'll see is a lot of females are told by their coaches or whoever they're working with, send me a weight whatever Friday morning or whatever, and pictures and let's see. So it's a one-time weigh-in, and then the coach makes an adjustment based on that. But what if that was right when they're starting to hold water? They prematurely cut more calories or add more cardio. It's oftentimes a premature adjustment based on a false positive, and that usually causes more of a problem for the female long term. So we want to avoid those sort of variables and try to have a consistent data check coming in so we can have a little bit more of an accurate understanding of what's going on.
This brings me to asking you how important it is to have multiple measurements instead of just body weight and whatnot, and what could they be? What other methods would you tell someone, hey, if you're trying to get healthier, fitter, look better, don't measure just body weight. You just said some people shouldn't be measuring body weight at all if that puts them off from doing anything. What else would you suggest would be really good thing to track? Is it progress photos? We already talked about some kind of physical measurements and maybe even go to some kind of universities. What about any fitness markers as well? Is there, let's say, top 3, top 5 things that you think work together much better than just picking one?
Yeah, absolutely. I have like 5 or so that I consider to be better metrics for checking. And then depending on what the goal is, they kind of move up in terms of tier of importance. Like if your health is your number one goal, then health checks should be the number one metric you're checking. And that's going to be blood work. Checked however frequently we deem necessary based on your current health status. But if it's the female who wants to look good, feel good, have energy, all these things, I think the first thing, as kind of cheesy as this might sound, is their energy change. When their body's being fueled properly, their energy is going to be noticeably increased relatively quickly. Before they're going to notice really anything else, they're going to feel that change in energy and maybe even improve sleep. And that's really good indication that things are in the right direction. If their goal is performance-based, and I'm going to have a performance-based measurement depending on what they're trying to do. If they're a sprinter, we're going to have run times. If they're a lifter, we're going to have loads that they have to make. When females are looking to improve aesthetics and we're training in the gym, strength training, what I have them do is I have them track their training. I want to see the load lifted, how many reps are we getting out of it, and I'm tracking all that. If I have a female that is 130 pounds and we're tracking her strength in the gym and her strength is improving, but her body weight's not going down, then she has to be getting leaner. Because for her to be getting stronger, more lean contractile tissue is being accrued over time. And if there's more muscle on her body and there's the same body weight, then there has to be less body fat. And that will always prove to be true. And then adding other measurements like a skin fold measurement or some sort of body composition measurement, along with the body weight trend, the performance in the gym, mood, energy, if all those things should all make sense. And they always do. They always will. If the program is proper and the client is following it, these things will always make sense, and they will all correlate together because it's your physiology. You are adapting, you're improving body composition, and all the metrics that we're tracking will show that. They just show at different timelines and different impact.
So what would be for you top 3 metrics you would track for someone who is trying to just look better and try to maintain health as long as they can? Would it be body weight photos and some kind of, I don't know, sleep quality, or would it be something else? What would you say is the most common one that gives you the best reflection about that progress is actually happening?
For someone that's trying to improve body composition, my go-to check would be skin fold measurements. Weight aside, the skin fold measurements are going to be a much stronger indication of adipose tissue. Is it going up or is it going down? It's hard to say because some of them are very convenient and therefore I kind of go to them if I have somebody that needs that convenience. Some of them are a little bit more expensive, a little more inconvenient, more time consuming, etc. So it kind of depends. A DEXA would be just as good as calipers. Blood checks would be very good if health was important. Obviously, checking blood all the time is not overly convenient. So if health was a little bit more of a priority, I think sleep is a very good indication of how things are going, and it is something I would consider tracking. I do have all my clients tracking sleep.
How would you track their sleep? Would it be just how they feel, or would you maybe introduce some kind of equipment, sleep apps or something?
What I have my clients do is, it's with some of those metrics, I really have them fill out a questionnaire. It's just on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 very good, 1 very bad. Tell me how you feel, and I give them a list of things: mood, energy, sleep quality, hunger, etc. That's just over a shared document, so I can see its numerical value. Some of them have gadgets that measure stuff. If they do, I use it. If they don't, I don't tell them to go buy one. I really leave it up to them. Some of them are better than others, but they all offer a consistency, which is important. So if you're getting a trend from the same gadget worn the same way, you can start to rely on the trend that it's showing, maybe not the actual accuracy of the measurement, but the trend you can. But really, I'm just asking them how they're feeling, their opinion, because their opinion is going to start to, if it's wrong, it's going to start to show up in all the metrics I'm measuring. So I need concrete data that I'm actually measuring, because I care about your opinion, but at the same time, I don't care about your opinion. Like there has to be some actual concrete data here. So all the things that we measure are not an opinion, they're measurements. And then I just correlate that with how they think they're feeling. And it usually will make sense. But I think that just them being aware and constantly thinking of it, they start to really kind of embrace it, and it becomes second nature, and it becomes actually quite accurate after a little bit of time.
So what would be that concrete data that you would kind of mix and match with their opinion about sleep?
For the sleep, it will be their quality of sleep on their opinion, and then the quantity of hours. The quantity of hours is going to be a measured thing that they can't really deny. And then with that, I'm going to have them, if their priority is something along the lines of health, I'm going to have them measuring their resting heart rate. If their resting heart rate is going up, I don't believe sleep quality is improving. It would be opposites. So, but it would depend on exactly what metric is most relevant, and that's going to depend on the clarity of that goal, which we talked about first. That's why the goal has to be very, very specific, and we have to make sure that we understand exactly what they mean by that, because it can be done very different ways, and obviously some metrics are better than others depending on what the goal is. If it's just an aesthetic thing, I really think the calipers are ideal, and the body weight will do its thing. But usually the body weight, especially females, is the last thing to move when you're looking to improve body composition. If you're just looking to drop weight, we can make you drop weight. We can have a female fighter drop 8% of her body weight in 5 days. So if you think about the 8% of your body weight in 5 days, someone would think that's the best diet in the world, but we're not doing that as a diet. We're doing that to make weight for a specific event. It has nothing to do with body fat. It's literally just a manipulation of water. So it's very, very specific. But when it's actual body composition, and when we're trying to get more muscle or less body fat, scale weight's usually the last thing I look at. It's usually the slowest mover, and it's the least relevant.
So how about photos? Because everyone likes photos. Where does that come into order of their importance?
To me, the photo thing, it becomes more relevant with a competitor, somebody that needs to step on stage and look a certain way. And I think the pictures matter not nearly as frequently as I hear people doing them. I do not need to see a photo every week, because if you are in this for the long-term sustainability, longevity, the body fat change is slow, 0.5%, maybe 1% a week. That's not going to show up in a picture very, very well on a weekly, unless they're in those last few weeks lead into a stage competition where everything changes what they look like. But I do think it's an important thing for females to have, whether or not they share them with me or their coach or not. I leave it always up to them, but it's good for them to have them on hand, because they're looking every day. They're not seeing progress because they're looking every day. But then if they have a picture from a month ago and they take a new picture and they stack them, they will see change. And that's usually highly motivating for females. So I encourage photos But I encourage them for a little bit different reasons. I encourage them really for them, not really for me, unless it's like I said, a competition where what they look like matters um, to me because we have to win. What they look like to them is their opinion. As long as they're happy, I'm happy.
So for somebody who is just doing it from home, would be good if they did take some photos, because sometimes
Yeah.
skin fold calipers, all those kind of things might be a bit complicated for somebody who's living on their own. So maybe photo would be a bit better choice. And then you also would tell them, hey, check your sleep if your quality is high based on your own opinion, and compare it to your sleep lengths, as well as adjust it to your resting heart rate, and make sure that kind of aligns, and that would show some kind of progress made, or maybe being stagnant.
Well, if their bodies, if their training program and everything is in check and they're sleeping, their resting heart rate and all that stuff's going to improve over time. So it's a slow mover unless our goal is cardiovascular based, and that's one of our primary metrics. But for a female that wants to look good and be healthy, I think the best thing for them to check for the health is literally their blood tests and health markers done regularly. And then from there, it's the aesthetic check. So that would become the skin fold measurements as the priority, and photographs. But I think it is important that females check that kind of stuff. There's other things they can do. They can do circumference measurements, but I would only check neck on a female, and I would only check the navel area. Because if you do a limb circumference and you're strength training, the limb circumference will always go up before it'll go down because the muscle is underneath. And the rate of muscle gain and fat loss, they don't go at the same pace. So if you're measuring circumferences and you see them go up, oftentimes that's derailing for a female. No female's looking to thicken their neck or thicken their midsection. So they're not going to be directly strength training their neck or their midsection. So those dimensions will go down. As long as their tape measure is, something that they can avoid a bias, so maybe a spring-loaded one, that will always go down. And that's a pretty strong indication. And females wear bras. The bra strap oftentimes will change. If they're strength training and the bra strap's getting tighter, that's a good sign to me, not a bad sign. That means that the muscle is changing size. I would encourage them to not always wear their spandex. Maybe every once in a while, put on something that's not stretchy and see, because their waist will shrink. And unless you're shrinking your clothes, or you're not shrinking, unless you're growing your clothes somehow in your wash, if they're bigger on you, even if you weigh the same, even if you weigh more, if the clothes are fitting bigger on you or more loose, you have less body fat. Like there's just no debate there. So that's a very strong, not popular measurement, is clothing. I would think clothing, circumference, calipers, energy and mood, those things are more relevant than scale weight when it comes to aesthetics.
So you talk about a scale weight not being so relevant. So talk me more about limitations that involve scale weight. What can it fluctuate? What can bring it up? What can bring it down? Impacts of stress, how nutritional strategies affect completely different, sleep, all those kind of things. Everything that can affect scale weight, not necessarily body fat.
So literally anything can affect scale weight. You could take your scale and move it 6 inches and step on it again, and it will weigh something different. Nobody's coming to your house and calibrating your scale. So literally anything in your environment can change your scale weight. The temperature outside, the humidity outside, the quantity of sleep, the quality of sleep, the amount of sodium you ate the day before, the timing of your food, the amount of fluids you drank, all these things can affect the scale weight. If you step on the scale, you're 130 pounds and you're 17% body fat, and then you put a backpack on with books in it and you step on the scale, now you're 5 pounds heavier, your body fat percentage hasn't changed. It can't. You're literally just putting more mass on the scale. And what that scale is measuring is total mass. So I think it's a very relevant measurement if you understand what it's measuring, and if you understand how to use it in conjunction with all your other training modalities and parameters that you're measuring, because they will make sense. It just adds more proof to the progress. But if that's your sole measurement and your goal is aesthetics, you're going to get discouraged right away. And you're going to make premature adjustments because the scale weight's never going to do what you think it is. Just thinking about the scale will probably make your scale weight go up. Just from stressing about the scale weight. If you're going to bed tonight and you're worried about the morning's weigh-in, you'll weigh more. Like, it's almost inevitable. So I think it's something that needs to be just added in if we deem it relevant, as just one of our metrics. And we just utilize that alongside the ones that are more relevant to the goal. Only somebody that needs to make weight should have the scale weight as their primary measurement. Everybody else, performance-wise, aesthetic-wise, the scale weight should be one of their least relevant metrics, if they even use it at all. I have some clients that don't use the scale weight.
You touched up slowly already about like mood, energy levels, and things like that. How do you track something like that, and how important that actually becomes? And maybe there are some other indicators that people can add on top of everything that they track to kind of, hey, scale is not moving, my photos are not changing, I don't really feel any stronger or weaker, sleep is the same. Is there something else, but I feel great? Does that mean they're progressing? Or
I have yet to see where only one thing is showing a positive. There's always more than one. But I think that would kind of come down to their goal. If their goal is looking good and feeling good, if they feel good, that's one of their goals, then that should be a very strong positive. But in terms of their mood and their energy levels, I just have that I check it as part of the checklist. On a scale of 1 to 10, how is your mood? And you'll find that it gets, literally every female I work with, you'll find the patterns, and it's usually based, every month there's going to be some fluctuations on that based on hormones and the menstruation cycle. And then because I work with a lot of professional women as well that are very busy, job stresses can affect these things too. But you'll start to see those patterns. But like I said, I've never seen the only metrics being positive. I feel lots of energy. I've never seen that being the sole marker. There's always more to it. And usually the one that never fails is performance in the gym. No matter what the performance goal is, that gym performance always seems to be improving. And that's a really strong indicator that we're going in the right direction.
So based on that, would it be rightly to assume that it's better to have maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, or even 10 different things to track than just 2?
I think the more things you track, the better, for sure. I think it's goal dependent, but you shouldn't rely on one unless all you care about, like if you wanted to have a bench press of 200 pounds, then really the only you need to measure is 200-pound bench presses, and that's all you care about, then you can get away with just measuring your bench press progress. But I would still rather see other things showing progress alongside the performance part. But you definitely need more than one if you want to make sure you're getting the most out of your efforts. You can always go extreme and push harder, but that's what kind of starts steering you away from the longevity sustainability approach and starts making it more of an acute scenario, like a transformation type of challenge or something, which is not things that I am a big fan of, because they're usually taking someone through an approach that's not sustainable, giving them progress that they're not going to keep, and usually causing them more harm than good in the long term. So I try to avoid the extreme things. So if you're looking for a sustainable approach and make progress along the way, I would have many metrics in play. Ones that are easy to check and not inconvenience at all, especially for busy women. But checking your scale weight first thing in the morning is easy. And if you don't like scale weight, no big deal. Checking calipers once a week is not time consuming. Paying attention to how you slept, how your energy is, how your performance is, those things aren't hard to do. You should be journaling that stuff anyway. So to me, the things that are offering the most amount of evidence for progress are things you should be tracking anyways. But people are putting too much emphasis on the scale weight, and that's probably the least relevant one.
It's interesting.
All the other ones you're doing are showing more.
When you mentioned that bench press stuff, I immediately remembered our national team's powerlifting coach, and he would adjust your training plan based on your feedback in the morning. He would ask, are you sore today? Can you lift your arms and legs and this and that? Have you hydrated well? Have you eaten well? Have you slept well? Even if you were doing only like one trick pony stuff, just a squat or deadlift or bench, he would still check every single day up to 10 different, if not more, things. Like, hey, how was your mood? A lot of his kind of people were students. Hey, did you have a stress at school and whatnot? And then he would adjust training plan based on the feedback of the morning. Whereas now people just look at one thing and think everything is collapsing, but it's just one thing.
That's right. And that's why I have them fill out a checklist. So that checklist, I have like 12 different things on there because they all move at different times at different pace. So certain things are coming up behind you. You're not realizing it, like stress is accumulating or lack of sleep is accumulating. You can have the worst sleep of your night and hit a PR in the gym the next day. That doesn't mean anything. But if you kept trying to hit PR with sleep deprivation, you'll break. So a lot of those things are just giving us the big picture and showing us the average over time. And we should see progress improvements in all those metrics, not decline. So like if I see someone's sleep pattern getting worse, then I know, okay, we're taxing this body. Why? Is it work? Is it stress from your home life? Is it my training? Is it the nutrition? Like, what is it? And the more things we can track consistently, the better idea we have of what needs to be adjusted. And that's super important. Females should be paying attention to a lot of that stuff. And these are all things they can do right now. They can go home, they can check all these things and start to implement that and make progress based on that and make adjustments based on that. But if they keep jumping on the scale only as their sole indicator, they usually make a decision that's probably not ideal for the long-term goal.
I like to compare all these things into kind of business sense when if you only check how much money goes into your account, doesn't mean you understand how much money you actually have. If you don't check how many credit cards you have maxed out, how many paychecks you need to pay, and so on and so forth. If you only look on one number, you feel like, wow, it's going amazing. And then outgoings are 10 times more and your everything is collapsing. So going from all of this, what would be your strategies for staying motivated and maintaining positive mindset when progress seems to not go in the right direction? Because you said already is that there might be some instances where, let's say, weight is starting to go up just because of the time of the month and whatnot. And for someone who hasn't used to it yet, that's just normal thing. What would be your strategies to kind of try to get them into understanding that, hey, this is bound to happen? Even if you make really great progress all the time, at some point you will scale back. I was just away for a couple of days, and every time I travel, I lose a lot of weight. Like to me, because I just don't eat anywhere near enough, and I don't train anywhere near enough, and all those kind of things. So I'm just oversized, and to me, opposite happens to what most people experience when they gain weight when they travel. So how do you keep people motivated? What do you think they can do to kind of keep that positive mindset? And if something intervenes with their daily schedule, and how to go about it?
I don't believe we can stay motivated all the time. I think if we're relying on motivation, we're going to fail. I think motivation is very powerful and it's going to be there from time to time, but I don't rely on it all the time. So I need some discipline. The clients need to be disciplined. And when I'm working with professional women, they're very disciplined. They're going to follow through. But I think what happens and what helps the most is explaining what to expect right from the beginning, understanding that scale weight. We're going to assume that the goal here is aesthetics and health. Scale weight is the least of our concerns. It's the thing that we're not paying attention to the most. It's the least relevant, etc. If I get that across to them right from the beginning, they're a little bit more understanding of watching as things go, because progress isn't going to really stall everywhere. It just can't, because things move at different pace. So energy, training quality, training basically performance abilities, sleep things, all those things are going to be moving at a different pace. So there's always going to be progress somewhere. And so I always just try to highlight what is showing the right progress versus what's theoretically stalled. And that is usually all they need. Females, we just all I need to do is explain to them, and they just need to understand. So if I'm explaining to them in a way and everyone's on the same page, they're very good with progress timeframes. As long as I set the expectation right from the beginning, don't come to me if you want to lose 100 pounds in 3 months. I'm not the coach for that. Um, I want to teach them skills and ways to go about making progress continuously, never really regressing, and then keeping that progress. And I think that happens all the time, but it does take a little bit of time in the beginning. And if they expect that, they're good. And after that, it's just a matter of time until they start seeing the skill weight finally catch up, because it will, it has to. But your body doesn't really care too much what you think. It's just doing what you're telling it to do via the signaling you're giving it. It's adapting to basically your environment. So if we're causing the correct adaptations, the progress isn't going to stop. It's just a matter of, can we find the progress? And if we have to start looking further, we will. Sometimes when I have clients getting more and more lean for, say, a competition, I have to start to add more skin site for more skin folds, like more sites, because there's just no more fat to leave certain areas. If you're down to a 3 millimeter, umbilical skin fold, there's nothing more to go. So if you still have 6-7 weeks of training to go, that's never going to move. You'd think that there's no more progress, but it doesn't work that way. So sometimes you have to find other ways to measure progress. You can't find a metric that's moving, but I've yet to see all the metrics stalled at the same time. It just never seems to work out that way.
So this actually brings me to the next question, what I wanted to ask you. How do you adjust your health and aesthetic strategies based on feedback and progress tracking? Like you just said, hey, this stops going down. How do you adjust your strategy? Let's say somebody is lean, very lean. They are happy about what they want to do. There is no progress to be made. So let's say they just want to grow glutes now, but they still want to stay lean and whatnot. Is that plausible? How do you change strategies based on the feedback you have? Maybe you tell them, hey, you know what, we're going to change this, but you will have to sacrifice a little bit of body fat to regain again. Or what else does come in play? For instance, some people are really happy just to maintain what they have. And that's it. They've got to that place where they are happy about how they look, how they feel, how well they sleep and whatnot, and they just want to maintain that. So they're obviously going to do different things than what is required to get there. How do you adjust those strategies based on kind of sliding progress?
We are in constant communication, and then the data the actual numerical data we measure is tracked, and I base all adjustments on that, and I adjust it whenever it's needed. I take their feedback in terms of their opinion on that 1 to 10 scale over some of those metrics. I take that into consideration all the time, but it's their data that trumps everything, because that's literally what they're actually doing. Now, sometimes what I'll have a client where compliance is being threatened because they're getting tired of the training program or something like that. I will adjust it for compliance sake. But at the end of the day, you can consistently adjust calories or training or one of those metrics, and progress will just never stop. Like, it's really hard to plateau progress unless you're at the last couple percentage of your complete, performance abilities, like an elite level athlete. But when you're working with females that want to look good and feel good, we're not approaching that level. So we're never really going to run out of progress. So I adjust it based on the data. If we're in a fat loss goal and I've seen a few stagnant weeks where I cannot justify the calipers haven't moved, I'm going to change something. I'm going to increase the deficit via either more energy output or less energy input, or a combination of the two. But I would never do it on 1 week alone, because with the female menstruation cycle, even the hormone fluctuations can skew calipers. So you have to make sure there's no underlying variable that's skewing a measurement to the point where progress is stopped. And it just almost never happens, because like I said, sometimes I could have a stalled caliper, a stalled body weight, but a fantastic last 3 weeks in the gym, and progress has just been very steady in the gym. So I just know another week or so, all of a sudden it's going to catch up, and bam, now the skin folds have dropped or something. So it really is just a juggle of the information, and the adjustments are made when they're needed. It's hard to say there's not really a strategy to it. It's literally, if it's needed an adjustment, we give it, and if not, we just keep it going. And then compliance is the opinion thing, where I always, as a coach, you always have to keep compliance in mind, because at the end of the day, if I give you the perfect plan and you don't follow it, it's pretty useless. So if compliance is being threatened for whatever reason, even if it's a reason that I think is not ideal for their long-term goal, I still have to make sure that they're compliant. So if they say, look, I'm tired of the scale not moving, okay, I'm going to make the scale move. Understand it's counterproductive to the way I understand your goal, but if it's going to make you happy, I'll make the scale drop, and I'll make the scale drop. Making the scale drop is easy. But usually it's just basing things on measurements.
And it sounds like it's important to kind of highlight that when you say progress, that doesn't mean just scale weight. It means performance in gym, sleep quality, you know, your ability to stick to the plan, your ability to follow through, how you feel, how you look, all those kind of things. So this is why you keep saying, yeah, progress never stops, because you never would tell someone just measure this one thing.
No, I wouldn't. And the other thing too, that's really good and hopefully encouraging for women to know, and anyone, men too, but working towards your goal is the work. If you literally have gotten your plate to a point now, like I have a female client that checked in on Monday. She checks in every Monday morning. She's good now. Her body composition where she wants it. She's happy with everything. So she's going to go to a quote unquote, maintenance phase now for the summer. Well, and she will not regress. She'll maintain her body fat percentage all summer long. Maintenance is easy. It's the work to get to the goal that requires the effort. When you have it, keeping it is not that hard, especially if you've taken your time establishing habits and the habits are giving you that progress, because then you're just going to live your life normally anyways, not even thinking about it, and your body will maintain. You need to give a stimulus to cause a body adaptation. Whether it's fat gain or fat loss, you need to provide that stimulus. If your habits don't provide a stimulus of fat gain, you don't just start gaining fat. It's just not going to happen. So if the women put in the work and they get to a place where they're comfortable, or they get to a point where, okay, I like this, I want to take a break for about a month or whatever, I'm going to go on vacation, whatever, keeping it is easy. It's really the easiest thing. So I think that's also important. I think that sometimes I think I have to do this forever. No, you have to put in the amount of effort it takes to get to your goal in the timeline you want it. But when you've achieved your goal, maintaining it is a lot less.
Yeah. So just a summary of measuring progress for women that are chasing health and aesthetics goal is don't get stuck on one thing, because health and aesthetics means multitude of things. And once you understand that, you could never be discouraged that you're not making progress, because there are so many things involved that you need to kind of look into that can keep you motivated and keep you consistent if you don't fall the victim for just a scale weight.
I think the females want to definitely distinguish between aesthetics and health, which is the priority. And if it's aesthetics, at what point does that aesthetic goal hinder health? You need to know those two things, but really that's it. And if they have that figured out, the more progress, or the more metrics they can check, the more they can realize that progress is happening. And the scale weight is not going to really factor into either of those goals. I mean, assuming they're not like obese or something like that. So they don't need to put much emphasis on the scale weight at all. If health is the priority, check health markers. If it's aesthetics, there's a million things that we can be checking, and they're all going to show progress. And that's what we need to make sure, is that progress is happening, and not let something like scale weight derive or derail what you think is a lack of progress when it almost certainly isn't.
So based on health markers, could you just give a quick kind of overview about what do you think is, how important it is to have regular health checkups, and what would you say, would they have to do a blood test once every 6 months or once every 3 months, or maybe there is things that, what would be your optimal? Not like, hey, this is a minimal. I would say, what would be your optimal thing to ask them? Hey, do full blood check once every 6 months, and then maybe check your thyroid or iron every 3 months, or so on and so forth, because you can pick different blood tests anyway.
If the female, a new client will already have had a blood panel done, will have already checked it. If they're quote unquote healthy, I think a health check or a blood test twice a year is enough, assuming they're a natural athlete and wanting to remain that. If they are going to start to get involved with performance enhancing things, a little more frequently would be ideal. If there was no thyroid concern, I would still keep thyroid as part of the every 2-year check. I think that's sufficient. Same with iron, because if we don't have an issue with low iron and they're following the training and the program and the nutrition the way I would laid it out, we're not going to have an iron issue. So I think a couple times a year is enough. They can check it as often as they want. It never hurts to have more, but the crux of blood work is to try to get it done under same conditions, especially with females. You want to know where in your menstrual cycle are you, because when they're going to give you your progesterone and estrogen and luteinizing hormone, all these values, they're going to give you a range based on what part of the cycle are you in, luteal, follicular, etc. So you want to know that, so when you're comparing, you can get similar times or similar comparisons on because you're in the similar time of menstruation. But other than that, if the goal is health and you're already healthy, a couple times a year is enough, in my opinion.
I love what you just said, which for both of us might be kind of a common sense, but we kind of gloss over it often. Standardize everything you do. So if you're taking your photos, make sure you take it in the same room, same lighting, same time of the day, same clothing, and all those kind of things. If you do your body weight, don't put your scale one day in the kitchen, next one in the bathroom, third one somewhere outside on the road where bloody cars are driving. Silly things like that. Same as your resting heart rate. Don't check your resting heart rate one day when you wake up, next day after you have done half an hour's cardio, and so on and so forth. So even when you do some kind of checklist for yourself, hey, I'm going to check these things. I just heard Scott talking about it. I'm going to check my sleep. I'm going to check how good I sleep, my resting heart rate. Is it improving? Is it decreasing, increasing, whatever? Check my photos. Everything that I do, I might even make a note of how I've done it. Okay, I did my resting heart rate on waking up 15 minutes after I went to toilet and had a glass of water, let's say, something like that. And sticking with that will give you way better understanding about what's actually happening instead of jumping all over the place. And I believe yourself and myself, we have often had a conversation with people when they send in something and you see it's very skewed up, but then you talk to them and it's just slightly different day. So it might look like something is going terribly wrong, but in reality, it was just something they didn't do the previous weeks, similar to previous week. So now it's showing completely skewed measurement, and we just go back to normal next week, and everything, lo and behold, is fine again.
100%. Like, consistency really is going to give us the accuracy. We need consistency in everything we're measuring. We need to be done in a consistent manner. So we are limiting as many variables as we can control. You can't control everything, but you can control a lot of it. And if you can control the majority of the external factors, you're going to get a much more accurate measurement. And we're going to be able to make much better adjustments based on that in anything, really.
Yeah. Awesome, Scott. Appreciate your time. And I'm going to see you next video.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.